Hey guys, welcome to part one of this training. I'm so happy to have you guys here. We've got a lot to cover, so I'm excited to get started. But before we get started, I just want to mention that in part one, we're going to go over a lot of theory and a couple tips and tricks, but a lot of part one is going to be the way that I approach promo editing and some of the techniques that I use in some of the promos I'm going to show you. And then in part two, what we're going to do is we're actually going to build a promo from some of this footage that I shot on the Sony FX9. And it's a bunch of really cool product shots. I got some really cool footage of some of these in my studio, so we're going to build a promo from a lot of these different shots. So it's awesome. I'm really excited to get started, so let's jump right in. Hey guys, so this is a Tic Tac Gum promo that is going to play in front of other videos on YouTube. So that's why it's a very short clip. It's 5 seconds, but this was part of a larger campaign that was done at one of the agencies that I work at for Tic Tac Gum. I'm just going to play this through and then we'll discuss it. So it's very short. It's kind of wacky. A lot of stock footage, I believe, and some of the stuff that we shot in the studio, we actually shot on the Sony FS7 cameras. So that would include this shot, this one, and this last shot. Now, the reason why I wanted to mention this promo is because I wanted to mention some of the advantages of having your shooting studio and your editing suite basically right next door to each other. This was shot in a small studio that they have on premises, and the editing suite and the color suite are right next to each other. So the studio, the editing suite, and the color suite are all basically in the same hallway. So what happens is that they can go shoot something in the studio, bring it over to color or bring it over to the edit and plug it in immediately to see if it's working. One of the things that we had to do here was actually change the color in the background. Now, originally this was more red, and I don't have the original raw files, but so it was more like this. They had a color swatch that they wanted to match, and so we had two different red shades. One was a very dark maroon and one was a brighter one. But when they saw how bright the red was, originally we were going to match it to one of the brighter ones, and then we realized, you know what, maybe it'll look better if it's a darker shade. And so we actually have the freedom. One of the great things about the Sony FS7 is that it has 10-bit 422 footage, and so you have a lot of color information there in order to push colors and experiment with different things with color and light and shadow and things like that. So that's a really good advantage to have, especially when you're pushing colors and doing things that maybe you wouldn't normally do to footage. It just kind of gives you more creative freedom. So originally we were roughly somewhere around here. We ended up somewhere around here. We kind of liked it better because there's still a little bit of a difference between his shirt and the background, and also the Tic Tac Gum label and the background. And so the great thing about being really, really close to set is that we can try different things, and if it doesn't work, we can just go back, shoot, pop the card out, plug it into the edit system or the color system, and then see if what we just shot works. And if it doesn't, we could just go back to set, make the necessary tweaks, and then come back to post. So shooting and post can kind of happen almost at the same time. Now, most of this is stock footage, and this is one of the clips that we actually had to change the background. So I can show you how to do that real quick. In this case, this shot has very clean color separation. So we got the reds here and the green background. The background actually wasn't green, it was a different color. I don't remember what it was offhand, but because the color separation is so clean, we can just sample. We just take this eyedropper tool, sample the background, and then it makes these points, so we can take this middle point. So basically what this does is it constricts the changes here to this shade of green, and then we can just kind of push this around and make it whatever color we want. So if we run into an issue here where we want to change it to purple, but we could see this blue fringe, all we really have to do is push these out a little bit more, and that blue fringe will kind of go away if we just move this around and play around with this. So we have to be careful, but with some tweaking you can kind of match the colors, and then if you want to do luminance you can do that as well. So the cool thing about this Tic Tac promo really is that we were able to kind of do post and shooting at the same time and try out different looks and things like that, and different approaches to the look of the footage and different colors. And we didn't have to break down the background. This is a colored backdrop, and so we didn't have to break it down and put up a new color. We could just kind of sample the color that was there and tweak it in post And then if we saw that it worked and it was clean, then we can keep it. And if it wasn't clean, then obviously we would have to replace the background. But it's great that we're able to have this freedom, and that all comes with having the right cameras and software and having the right knowledge to be able to work quickly and to make these changes in a clean way that's up to quality. So this is a Weight Watchers promo that was shot on the Sony FS7. I'll play it through and then we can discuss it.
In the last year, I've gained so much confidence. WW Freestyle has allowed me to set a workout routine. This year, I ran my first mile ever. I fell in love with the way that it made me feel. It's not just about the scale. It's about feeding my body the right foods. My favorite recipe is chicken fajitas. It only takes one sheet pan and it's delicious. When I feel good about myself, I find it easier to stay on track. And I love being able to wear whatever I want and feel great about myself. I'm not afraid to be social and outgoing and meet new people. My favorite quote is, "The biggest adventure you could ever take is to live the life of your dreams," and I'm now finally living it.
So I did the color on this one, and one of the great things about, as I mentioned before, the Sony FS7 is that it has 10-bit 422 color. And so you can see that it has a very flat profile, so it's S-Log3. I think the color is S-Cine. And so what you can do is you can preserve a lot of details, and you can bring out a lot of detail that's hidden in the log file. I can just kind of skip through this, and you can kind of see some of the details here. Now, there was some reframing that was done in the edit, but you could see that, you know, you're preserving a lot of detail, and then once you add the color, a lot of that detail in there just pops. One of the things I actually wanted to point out here was that if you look at the raw, it's a lot lighter and there's no blue in there. So what I did was I actually added, in Resolve, I actually added an edit right here. So you can kind of still see the blue in there. But what I did is I added an edit, and then I added a crossfade. And it was a quick one. But I brought some warmth back into it on this side. So this clip on this side had some warmth to it. And this one had a lot of that blue push to kind of emulate nighttime or early morning. And so when you crossfade between the two, and it happens very quickly, you can go between two different color grades to kind of emulate that light turning on. So some of this kitchen stuff is a little brighter than I would have wanted it to be, but that was the direction I got from creative. And sometimes that's just what you have to do, which is fine. You know, everyone has their own specific things that they like. But you can see here in the raw file that nothing here is clipped. And then you could just push it sometimes really far, and with all the color information, you still have an image that doesn't break apart, which is the great thing about the FS7 and also now the FX9 is that they do 422 10-bit instead of a DSLR, a typical DSLR, which would do, you know, something like 8-bit 420. So you're lacking in color information there, but when you have a lot more color information, you can push the image farther and pull out a lot of those tones without artifacts. So you get a really clean, nice looking image. So you can see here too that none of this was blown out, but once we add the color, that white really, really does pop. I don't think it's quite blown out. It's just right at the edge. So same here, I would have liked to preserve a little bit more of that window detail, but they really wanted the whites to pop. And so you can really push that, but you could see that it's still hanging on to some detail there. And these studio shots were a little challenging because this shot was actually a bit darker than this opening shot. So if you look at the raw, you can see how much brighter this is than that. So there's always certain things that come up that you have to deal with in color, but because you have all that latitude with the color and the dynamic range and the resolution and everything of the FS7, then you can really push the footage and make it look great. So I want to jump into a little bit more of the tips and tricks of editing and some of the things that I've used on promos. This is a Napa Auto Parts promo that was shot on the Sony FS7 and also the A7S and a couple drones. I don't remember which ones. But most of the footage is Sony FS7 and A7S. So I'll play this through and then we'll discuss some of the editing techniques that I used on this piece.
Hi, I'm Tyler Hoover, and this is my 2003 Marauder. I love this thing. There are a few issues. My window regulator is a little messed up, and it's definitely due for an oil change. Thankfully, Napa's here to help. Hi.
Welcome to Napa. What can we do for you?
I need a driver's side front window regulator.
Alrighty.
I'm also going to do an oil change, so I need a filter.
Looks like we have everything in stock.
Awesome. I'll get some oil. What do you drive?
I have a 16 Mustang GT. It's got a 5.0 in it.
That's a lot faster than my old thing.
Anything else I can do for you?
No, thank you very much.
All right, have a great day.
Repairing a used car, it's an adventure. You just don't know what you're going to get. You just dive right in, and it's a fun experience. I'm pumped. I'm ready to do this. Welcome to my garage. I have my parts here and my tools. Here's my new window regulator, ready to tear into this old one that's acting up. First, we got to get this panel off somehow. 5/16. This window regulator has to do some serious yoga to get in here. To line this door panel back up. Hey, that worked. Now we can do the oil. Going in, let's check the level. Bang, right on the money. All right, so as far as oil changes go, this thing's really easy. I also got to look underneath, see that there's nothing wrong. The window regulator, a little bit more of a challenge, but still not bad. Now, this Marauder is definitely ready to kick up some dirt. I'm ready too. I do know a place that we can go do some donuts. 81 Speedway. I've never driven on a dirt track before. But anybody could go into Napa, buy their own parts, put it themselves, and it is pretty fun.
Oh, I got this now.
Okay, so the first thing you'll notice is that it's very jump cutty, and that was designed that way on purpose because we had a very long piece. We had a lot to cover. And in fact, I'm just going to move this to the beginning here so we could actually see how long this is. Yeah, so this was under 2 minutes, and that was good. Now, you know, a lot happens. It was scripted so that he arrives at Napa Auto. He explains what's going on with his car a little bit, talks about his car. Then he goes inside to get whatever he needs. Then he drives to his garage. He talks a little bit about doing it yourself, which is sort of what Napa Auto Parts is all about, is sort of finding the parts that you need and finding all the equipment that you need and repairing or fixing certain things in your car yourself, doing an oil change, things like that. So he drives to his garage. He starts talking about his window regulator and how he fixes it, and he actually went through the whole process. And so we really had to jump cut this. There's an oil change. Goes to the track, finish it off with a little bit of fun, and then we're out. I mentioned that we did a lot of jump cuts here, and that was to cover this huge amount of story in under 2 minutes. Originally, they were going to try to go for 1.5 minutes, but it just didn't work. It just didn't fit. So under 2 minutes, we came in at, and I think it told the story adequately enough without skipping over too many of the important parts. One of the things I want to point out first is this garage scene, because this is where you see it the most. Now, if we just scroll through some of this stuff, I'm just going to give myself a little bit more room here, actually. So he actually tears apart his door, gets the window regulator in there, hooks it up, seals the door, and also does an oil change. So that's a lot to fit into one section. And we really had to keep the timing of this tight. Otherwise, this piece would have been maybe 15 or 20 minutes. So one of the techniques that I used, and part of it is taking advantage of what they did on set, they shot 2 cameras, which is always good because then we can cut back and forth between a close-up and a wide. One of the operators is getting something different than the other guy. And then underneath that, we can just overlay the VO. Now, it actually wasn't VO. He was actually discussing what he was doing as he was changing, or as he was fixing the window regulator. So what I had to do was go through and pull out the lines throughout that whole thing. And I think the whole process was probably maybe about half an hour of footage. So I had to go through all of that and then find all the lines and then cut that down. And basically, it's not really about going through all the raw footage and then pulling the exact lines and then placing it in a timeline and then you have your edit. It's more so about pulling an excess amount of things, putting it into a timeline, and then editing that down. That was one of the things that when I first started editing promos that I didn't really understand, or actually when I first started editing in general, but mainly for promos, was that just get something on the timeline. It doesn't matter if it's a 30-second commercial or a 30-second piece and you have 5 minutes on the timeline, because you're going to edit it down. The thing is that you have to see, for me anyway, I have to see stuff visually. So I have to be able to lay things out on a timeline where I can see everything and then play around with it, chop it up, And then I can go, oh yeah, this piece, it can go here, and I don't need this section. I can cut that out. And then you just keep on whittling it down from 5 minutes to 2 minutes to a minute and a half to 30 seconds or whatever time frame that you're trying to fit in. So it's really about getting something on the timeline first and then worrying about cutting it and chopping it up and getting it to time. Barely anybody gets things right on the first try. So what you have to do is give yourself an excess of material so that you can pick from the best things. Because sometimes if you're just scrolling through and you're trying to come up with an edit off of 30 minutes of footage, you might not pull the best parts. So you can pull all the relevant parts, put them all on a timeline. It's, of course it's going to be long, but then from there, what you do is you just chop it up and you keep on chopping it up until you reach the desired time frame. So don't worry about finding the exact right pieces, because a lot of the times too, you're not the only one making the creative decisions. You actually have to collect all of the options, put them in a timeline so that you can find them quickly, and then lay them out or string them out. And then you can either go through it with a producer or familiarize yourself of where everything is. Then you could present the producer or the creative director with your edit. And then they might go, oh, no, I remember something on set and I really want to put in this line. So then you can go back quickly and find it because you've already chopped out the excess stuff and only brought in the relevant information. So with that in mind, if you take a look at this garage section, one of the techniques that I used was actually having his voice over the entire edit. So even if it's jump cutty, you can still get a sense of what's going on because he's talking about it and he's saying what he's doing and you can follow along. And so when you introduce that style early on, and you can kind of see it here at the beginning of the promo, where he starts talking, but then we're cutting to other things and we're cutting really quickly. Once it's not even like 10 seconds into it and you already understand the style. So if you just continue that style throughout the whole thing, then people will subconsciously just go, okay, yeah, this is how they're telling the story. And so this is how I'm going to follow along. And then it doesn't seem weird where if you have something playing out linearly and slowly, and then all of a sudden you start doing jump cuts, it just doesn't work. So you have to kind of maintain that visual style throughout the entire promo. It doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes you can switch, but most of the time, if you introduce it right off the bat, within the first 5 or 10 seconds, people are just going to understand that this is the way the promo is. And so I can skip a lot of different things here as he's putting this together, and you still understand what's going on. And I kept some of the funny little bits and the parts that are relevant and the parts that are necessary so that you understand what's going on. So you can try that out. You can do a very jumpy, quick cut promo as long as you have the narration or the voiceover underneath that kind of ties everything together. And it really does help in these situations where you see what he's saying because it's so jump cutty and quick. A lot of us like to call it see-say, where you see what the VO is saying. So if they're talking about, so for instance here, if they're talking about drilling something, you see that visual and it helps tell the story. So that's why they call it see-say. Now I have to say, and I did mention this earlier, that when you're doing a very jump cut kind of style, it always helps to have more than one camera, because if you just have one camera, it's really hard to be able to jump between anything really because you only have that one angle. Now if you're delivering in 1080 and you're shooting 4K, sometimes you can punch in. It's not always the best option. It's nice to have, but it's not always the best option because if you have a different angle, it really just helps a lot more because then you're not looking at the same angle that's just punched in. So those are some of the concepts that I applied in this promo. And this stuff, it does really take practice. It's not just throwing things together and making them cut really quickly. There's a level of intuition that goes into it where you have to kind of listen to your gut and go, okay, yeah, we're on this shot for too long. I mean, you can see some of these shots too here, like just how quickly they're cut. Like even this, where the window is going down and it kind of jumps there, but you still, because the style is introduced at the beginning, you buy it. And I think the thing with the window going down was that it just took too long. And then, but that line kind of seals the deal. It's like, hey, that worked. And so he successfully fixed the window. But if I just showed that part, it wouldn't have been enough. So I had actually the whole window rolling down, but it just didn't work because it just took too long. So it was like one of those gut things where I said, okay, there needs to be a cut here. And so I put that in there. But if we play this out, you can kind of see some of the shots last a little bit longer than others. And that's just sort of an intuition kind of thing where you kind of have to go, okay, and you get that from experience too, but you just have to go, okay, I can hang on this shot a little bit longer because there's something interesting here. Or here is, for instance, this is a shot of, switching from the garage to him driving to the track. And so what we can do here is actually slow it down a little bit. And this is, again, with pacing, you can slow down the edit a little bit. It definitely helps with the music and also what he's saying.
Now this Marauder is definitely ready to kick up some dirt.
So, and that's why you can hang on that shot for a while, is because it's at the end of a section. So you're kind of slowing it down, slowing the pacing down and going, okay, that part's done. Also the camera movement too of pulling out away from the car instead of pushing in. Because normally when you push in, it's sort of like, hey, pay attention to this. But if you're pulling out, it's almost like, okay, we're done. We're moving away from the car. We're moving away from the action. We're moving away from what's going on here. And then we're going to transition into something else. So you can kind of see even here, and this is something I didn't even notice while I was editing, but the juxtaposition here of pulling away from the car and then pushing in to start a new section. So you can see this shot pushes in, whereas the shot before it is pulling out. So pull out and then push in, and you start a new section. So one thing that really helps when you start a new section or you're kind of establishing a new place is to have a wide shot. And so we have a wide shot here, kind of establishing geography so you know where everything is. So once we jump into this whole section, you kind of know where everything is. And it's not like, oh, I'm just seeing this for the first time. So you can see here too, like to kind of emphasize the cool parts, like him peeling out on the dirt and the dirt getting kicked up and everything. We went into a slow motion close-up shot or a closer shot. So I'll just play this. And you can see how that emphasizes the action. Now it's cool because you're going, normal speed, then it slows down, and then it speeds up to normal speed again. So it really emphasizes what's going on, kind of pulls you in a little bit. So it's, all these different tools that you're using in order to get the point across or to emphasize a certain emotion during a certain part of a scene. And these are all different techniques and different things that you can do to achieve that and to maximize the emotion, because that's the whole point of editing, is maximizing the emotion of a scene. There are a lot more other techniques that you can use, and these are just some of them, but I hope that helps and clears up certain things, and maybe you can try some of these techniques on your next project. So this is a Furious 7 promo that I worked on. One of the cool things about this promo, for me personally, is that it was directed by one of my favorite directors, or the movie was directed by one of my favorite directors, James Wan. So it was awesome to actually be able to use this footage and make a promo out of it. And plus, it's a summer blockbuster, so get some points there. So I'm just going to play through it, and we'll discuss some of the challenges and techniques.
Thursday, March 5th.
This time it ain't just about being fast.
USA is the only place to catch an exclusive look at Furious 7.
Just when you didn't think it could get any better.
See it right here during the series premiere of Dig, Thursday, March 5th at 10 on USA.
Okay, so I've gone through and I've placed, I don't have the original timeline. This was edited in Avid. Obviously, the production company has the original edit, but this is a picture of the timeline. It's interesting to see how it has progressed over time. These are different sections, so you can kind of see, this section here that's highlighted was basically one of the only sections that we actually had definitive footage for, and you'll see what I mean in a second. So in the script, there are certain lines. The VO is obviously already written, but there are certain lines that the producer would put in to do a paper edit. And basically what that is just a written script that lists shots. Now, sometimes they're more detailed than others. Some producers like to say, okay, pick this shot, use this shot here, and they give you a blueprint or a little bit of a roadmap, but they leave it up to you. And then sometimes they'll be very specific. You might actually end up being a button pusher, which is not really ideal, but sometimes that happens. And then sometimes they're just very hands-off, and they want you to kind of put in your expertise, because they're not editors, they're producers. They make sure that the thing gets made. They want the editor to come in and work his magic. So on this project, I had a producer who wanted me to just come in and do my thing, which is awesome because those are the best kind of jobs, I think, where they don't think of you as a button pusher, they think of you as a creative collaborator. So whatever you can do to bring something to the project, and that's why they're hiring you, is for your expertise. So those are the projects that I really love taking on. And I was very fortunate that this was one of those projects. And it was actually quite interesting. I was in this company. The guy knew I was an editor also, but I was doing some motion graphics for them. And then he was like, I just want to creative direct on this one. I'm going to give you a promo to edit. It's really simple. Don't worry about it. It's editing 101. You'll be able to do it. It's fine. I was like, okay, what's the project? Because I knew that they did network promos and things like that. So I was like, yeah, what's the project? He's like, Furious 7. I was like, what? So it was it was pretty funny. It was kind of a shock at first, and then it was like, oh, cool. I better step up now. It was cool. It was cool to be able to have that kind of thrown at me like it was no big deal. I was talking before that sometimes producers don't want to tell you what to do. They want to kind of have you come in and just present you with what the client expects, and then expect that you are able to do that without a lot of hand-holding. And I love that kind of challenge because I like being given some creative direction so that I know what I'm doing is not way to the left of what they're trying to do. But I think this project was the perfect amount of creative direction and the expectation of me bringing my own expertise to this. So that being said, the script was very sparse. In fact, if we want to look at what pieces of footage had to definitely be in the promo would look like this. If we listen to this part.
Thursday, March 5th.
So it was the voiceover that says Thursday, March 5th, and then it was like sound up, introduction shots, things like that. It was very vague, which I loved because then I was like, okay, cool, I get to pick the shots now. And then
This time it ain't just about being fast.
so this line from Vin Diesel was not in the script. It was just something that I had to pick from the trailer and the footage that was provided. I'm going to show you a couple of earlier cuts of the trailer so you you can kind of see how the trailer evolved. They were very early on, and I haven't seen them in a while, so I'm probably going to be embarrassed to to look at them, but I'm going to show them to you anyway. But the only shots that were definite were this.
Furious 7.
Just when you didn't think it could get any better.
So that line from Paul Walker and also the VO. And then actually this shot of the car exploding, it wasn't even in the script really. It was more so just saying, the script, I think it said explosion or some kind of sound up or something like that. So actually this would probably even look like that. So it was really just the title, this line, and then
Of Dig, Thursday, March 5th at 10 on USA.
that little bumper at the end because that's necessary to promote USA Networks and their show. So I had to fill in all of this and all of that. So this is all I was given. And I loved it because then I got to go through the trailers and the footage and everything, and I got to pick my own shots and where they ended up in the trailer. So let's watch edit 2 of this promo. And I haven't seen this in a very long time, so this is probably going to be really bad, but let's watch it anyway.
Next Thursday.
Daddy's gotta go to work.
Catch an adrenaline-pumping exclusive USA sneak peek of Furious 7.
Just when you didn't think it could get any better.
See the sneak peek during USA's groundbreaking new series premiere of Dig next Thursday at 10 on USA.
Wow. So, actually, you know, some of those parts I actually thought were really cool. Some of those shots I forgot about, like this one. This is like out of context. It just looks so ridiculous because it's like, why are two cars colliding and then the entire glass building explodes behind them? I don't know. Anyway, so, but you can see here that we had these kind of like hinge moments. It was this, the title card, this line, and then that. And I think this revealing of the car at the beginning kind of stayed the same because the shot seemed like a good intro shot because it was sort of like revealing or pulling the cover off of what this promo was. I don't know. It's some kind of metaphorical thing, maybe. I don't know. But I just felt that it was one of those good intro shots. It wasn't, you know, you don't want to start the promo with explosions because then you have nowhere to go. And I actually think that that's one of the problems here. It escalates so fast. I mean, it's a summer blockbuster, but it escalates so quickly that there is nowhere else to go. So you just have to make it crazier and crazier. So I think I toned back on a lot of this stuff because of that reason. It was just too much too soon.
Next Thursday.
Daddy's gotta go to work.
So even that line, which is completely ridiculous, out of context anyway. It's funny, but I think the line in the final promo actually works a little bit better because it's like, oh well, this time it's not just about being fast, and that was the line in the final promo, and it was sort of building up to it. I think The Rock saying "Daddy's got to go to work" it was a good first attempt, but yeah, that's why that's edit 2. So this is edit 3. And again, I haven't seen this, so I hope it's not terrible.
Next Thursday.
One last ride.
USA is the only place to catch an exclusive sneak peek of Furious 7.
Just when you didn't think it could get any better.
See it right here during USA's groundbreaking new series premiere of Dig, next Thursday at 10, only on USA.
So already that's a lot closer to the final promo. There are certain things in there, like this line, "One last ride." I kind of felt, because the whole backstory of sadly Paul Walker passed away during the filming, and I felt that was it would bring up negative feelings for some people maybe. So I just decided maybe it's probably not the best idea to include that in there. Although, the intentions were good, I just started thinking about it more, and I was like, it's probably not. It's probably not a great idea. And then also on top of that, it made it seem like this was going to be the last movie. And at that point, I think they already had announced the sequels. Maybe not, but there was that possibility. So I didn't want to really make it feel like it was the last film. And all these different things you have to kind of think about while you're editing, because it's going to go back to Universal. It's also going to go back to USA. And there are all these different people who have to review the work. And then you have to kind of think about, okay, well, what are they thinking about? Would they want that in there? Maybe, maybe not. Is that controversial? Maybe we should stay away from that. Maybe we don't want to bring up any negative feelings. There's so many different questions that could pop up. And you kind of have to predict some of these things and maybe go, okay, maybe that's not the best thing to include in the promo. So that was the reason for that change. But you can see here that a lot of this was already intact. That's the same as the final promo. This is the same. All of this is the same. So it was really just this. If you look at this intro, this sort of builds, right? We're looking at, I'm just going to mute this, but we're looking at footage and we see him reveal the car. So it's sort of like pulling off or revealing the promo, or, pulling off the covers of the promo. You might hear some of this stuff and go, you're really reaching there and you're really digging deep or looking too far into it. But it's one of those things where it's not really something it's on the nose. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things that psychologically kind of helps with the beginning, the middle, and the end of a promo, and building up the mystery and intensity and the emotion of the promo. This is a good shot because and I put a little speed ramp on there too, but this is a good shot because it really kind of one of those things where it's sort of like a reveal. And then this is just building up energy, and you can hear it in the sound design too, which was something I worked into the edit. Let me unmute this.
It's Thursday.
One last ride.
So even that build up right there, how the sound just kind of cuts out.
One last ride.
And you cut to black. It's sort of like, revealing, and then all of a sudden build up, and then cut to black, and then a line. And then
USA is the...
Now this is jumping into it a little too heavy, so that's why it was changed. That's the concept behind it. So then it's like action, build up action, and then car chases and car racing. These are all the elements that make up this movie. So you kind of want to show a lot of this stuff, but also you don't want to go too far. Now, this explosion here is actually the first explosion you see. If we go back to the original promo, it's just crazy because it's just, gunfire and then shifting gears and then cars hitting into each other, buildings exploding for no reason, and then an explosion and then another explosion, and then cut to a wider shot of that explosion, and then cars falling from the sky, and it's just really, really heavy. But you can see here that
Furious 7.
That sort of tops it off. Even though it's not an explosion, it's not as big and epic, it's still an epic shot. And it sort of kind of gives you a break from all this fast, crazy action that's going on.
Catch an adrenaline-pumping exclusive USA sneak peek of Furious 7.
Right, so it kind of builds to this moment, and then boom, we're into the title. Now, obviously, we didn't end up going with that because this is I think this is a more organic build, and I think that this is a more effective build. Right, and this line actually works better. This is the final promo. This is an alternate edit of the final promo.
This time it ain't just about being fast.
Right, so it's sort of like building up to the thing rather than having explosions right out the gate. So it's sort of reveal, build up, build the tension, and then
This time it ain't just about being fast.
something that tells you a little bit about the film. It's not just about being fast. It's something else. And then we go into more action, fight scenes, gunfire, car racing chases and stuff like that. And then the explosion here sort of tops it all off, and then we go into the title. So it's more of an organic build. It's a better build with tension and excitement than all the other previous edits. And then after the title, there's this line of just when you didn't think it can get any better. That was in the script, but I think that kind of builds on when after 6 movies, you didn't think it could get any better. Well, check this out. So it's sort of like these little hints and these little subliminal things maybe that you kind of pepper in at the right moments. So yeah, maybe some of it sounds like a reach, and maybe some of it sounds like you're looking into it a little too far, but in a way that's good because it's a subtlety, and that's what we're really going for. Now that sounds weird when we're talking about a summer blockbuster, but that's my view on it anyway. This line kind of bridges into the build up to more action to wrap up the promo. So I'm just going to play this part through.
Furious 7.
Just when you didn't think it could get any better.
See it right here during the series premiere of Dig, next Thursday at 10 on USA.
So I think there were 3 different music tracks. The first one ends at the title card, or actually at the explosion.
Fast.
USA is the only place to catch an exclusive look at Furious 7.
Just when you didn't think it
So
could.
then the new one kicks in.
7.
Just when you didn't think it could get any better.
See it right here during the series premiere of Dig, next Thursday at 10 on USA.
So it builds until that ending,
See it right here during the series.
and then it cuts to another music track. All that kind of ties together into one promo, and it helps build the emotion and the tension and everything. And, these are kind of cool shots to end on because it's sort of slowing down from all this, explosions falling out a window and a car driving out of a window. But it kind of slows down a little bit until you get this, and it crashes right into the camera, and it cuts to black, and then this comes up. So it's like build, and then boom, out, and then wrap it up. So I hope that kind of helps, talking about the methodology here, rather than just going through and showing you how to use the tool, because anyone can learn that. You can learn that on your own, but having an idea of a little bit of the insight and the mindset that you have going into these things, and some of the things that you should expect or maybe keep an eye out for, such as a sparse script or how producers like to work, things like that. I hope that helps, because that's where you're really going to stand out, is bringing your own skill set, your own expertise, and your own taste. Anyone can learn a tool, but when you have good taste, that's what people are really going to hire you for. Some people might not know the latest and greatest features of a tool, but I do suggest you learn them, because then you could be more creative. If you know more tech stuff, then you can be more creative, and it frees you up to be more creative. But also at the same time, it's not necessary to be ultra technical, because if you think about it, if you know everything about the tool, but you don't have good taste, you're not going to put together a good promo. It might be technically correct, but it's not going to be emotionally correct, and it's not going to emotionally connect with an audience. So those are some of the things that you really want to look out for. And those are the things that you really want to master, so that you're not just someone who knows how to push buttons, but you're someone who brings their own skill set, their own taste, and their own flavor to some of the promos and some of the pieces that you work on. Okay, so that's it for part 1. I'm excited to jump into part 2 because then we actually get to use what we've learned and what I've talked about, and we get to apply that and make a promo with it. I'm going to go over a bunch of techniques, including speed ramps, and how I would approach building the promo out from this footage in order to get the most effective emotional reaction from the promo. So stay tuned, and I hope to see you there.